The wire fence cuts the sky into diamonds. Through it, Lieutenant Takeshi Yamada watches something he cannot understand. Dust rises from a field. Men in white uniforms sprint in circles. Others crouch in defensive positions. A commander stands at the center, barking orders. The crowd roars, thousands of voices, synchronized, primal. Takeshi's fingers tighten on the chain link. "They are training," he whispers. Behind him, 37 Japanese prisoners of war lean forward, faces pressed to the wire. They've been captured for 8 months. They've endured interrogation, isolation, and the slow disintegration of everything they were taught to believe. But this is something new. A man in the center raises a wooden club. Another man, 60 feet away, winds his body like a spring and hurls a projectile at violent speed. The crack echoes across the desert. The object vanishes into the sky. The crowd erupts. Takeshi's breath catches. "Tactical simulation," another prisoner murmurs. "Close quarters combat drill." They watch the runners advance in coordinated formation. They watch the defenders shift positions with military precision. They watch the commander signal, and the entire ritual repeats. This is Arizona, 1944. These are not soldiers. And what these prisoners are witnessing will reshape everything they believe about America and themselves. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, if you're fascinated by untold moments from history that changed the world, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss these stories. And drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor burns. In a single morning, the Empire of Japan shatters the illusion of American invincibility. Battleships sink. Men drown in oil-black water. The Pacific ignites. Within hours, the United States declares war. And within months, the tide begins its slow, brutal turn. By 1942, American forces are capturing Japanese soldiers, men trained since childhood to die rather than surrender. Men who recite the Senjinkan, the military code, do not suffer the disgrace of being taken alive. Yet they are taken. Some are pulled unconscious from caves. Others, starving and delirious, stumble into American lines. A few surrender willingly, their spirits broken not by violence but by the realization that their empire has lied to them. They arrive at camps scattered across the American mainland, places they never imagined existed. Vast, empty deserts, endless farmland, cities that stretch beyond the horizon. And everywhere, abundance. The prisoners expect brutality. They've been told Americans torture captives, execute the weak, desecrate the dead. They brace for starvation, for labor camps, for the slow erasure of their humanity. Instead, they find something far more confusing. Hot meals, medical care, shelter, and baseball. At Camp Lordsburg in New Mexico, prisoners watch through fences as American soldiers gather in a clearing. At Camp Florence in Arizona, guards invite prisoners to observe recreation time. At first, the prisoners ignore it. Then they notice patterns. The ritual begins the same way every time. 9 men take positions across an open field. Another 9 wait in a dugout, a trench, clearly defensive. A single man stands at the center, club raised. The commander, the pitcher, winds up. The throw, the swing, the crack. Chaos erupts. Men sprint. Others dive. The crowd screams. To the prisoners, it looks like war. Lieutenant Yamada, former Imperial Navy officer, begins taking notes. He sketches diagrams on scraps of paper. He times the intervals between engagements. He watches the commander's signal with hand gestures, clearly encoded orders. Other prisoners join him. "Look," one says. The runner only advances when the defender fails to secure the projectile. Territorial acquisition, another notes. They fight for control of fixed positions. And the crowd, Yamada adds, they are not spectators. They are adjudicators, ensuring compliance with tactical doctrine. The more they watch, the more certain they become. This is not recreation. This is military training. But there's something else, something that disturbs them even more than the training itself. The Americans are smiling. Weeks pass. The prisoners watch every game they can. They develop theories. The wooden club, one prisoner proposes. It simulates a rifle with bayonet. Close quarters engagement. No, another argues. It's symbolic, a psychological exercise. The warrior must strike the projectile to prove reflexes. Then why 9 positions? Why not standard infantry formations? Silence. They don't know. What they do know is that every American soldier participates. Young recruits, hardened veterans, even officers. The ritual crosses all ranks, all divisions, all branches. It must be fundamental to their war doctrine. Yamada begins interviewing other prisoners, men from different camps who've witnessed the same phenomenon. At Camp McCoy in Wisconsin, prisoners report Americans playing the ritual in freezing snow. At Camp Shelby in Mississippi, they play in stifling heat. At coastal camps, mountain camps, urban camps, everywhere, the same ritual. They are conditioning themselves, Yamada concludes. Reflexes, coordination, strategic thinking. This is how they train without revealing actual combat techniques to us. It makes perfect sense. Except for one thing. The children play it too. Yamada watches through the fence as American children, some no older than 7, gather in a vacant lot beyond the camp perimeter. They argue over positions. They choose sides. They play the same ritual their fathers play. Indoctrination, a prisoner whispers. They train their warriors from birth. Another nods slowly. That is why they are winning. The realization spreads through the camp like a cold wind. Japan trains its soldiers to obey, to endure, to die with honor. America trains its soldiers to think, to react, adapt, and coordinate as a unit. And they begin training in childhood. If you're enjoying this story, give this video a thumbs up. It really helps the algorithm share these hidden moments of history with more people. And seriously, drop a comment. What surprised you most so far about this story? Yamada writes a letter to his family, knowing it will be censored, perhaps never sent. We have underestimated them, he writes. Their strength is not in weapons or numbers. It is in the way they think. They train their minds like we train our bodies. And they enjoy it. That is what I cannot understand. They smile while preparing for war. One afternoon, a guard approaches the fence. He's holding 2 wooden clubs and a leather ball. You guys want to try? The prisoners freeze. His name is Corporal Eddie Nakamura. Japanese-American. Born in California. Speaks fluent Japanese. He's been watching the prisoners watch the games for weeks. Come on, Eddie says, smiling. It's just baseball. The prisoners stare. Baseball. Yamada repeats slowly. Yeah. Baseball. America's pastime. You know, fun. The word doesn't translate. Eddie sighs. He sets down the equipment and walks away. But he leaves the bat and ball. That night, Yamada holds the bat. It's lighter than he expected. Smooth. Worn in places where hands have gripped it thousands of times. He turns it over slowly. If this is a weapon, it's poorly designed. No balance for striking. No edge. No point. If this is a tool, its purpose is unclear. He closes his eyes. For the first time in months, he allows himself to imagine something other than war. The next day, Eddie returns. All right, he says. Let me show you. He takes the bat. Demonstrates the grip. Shows them how to stand. This is home plate. That's first base. Second. Third. You hit the ball, you run. Simple. What is the objective? Yamada asks. To score runs. Get around all the bases before they tag you out. And if you fail? Eddie shrugs. You try again next inning. The prisoners exchange glances. Try again. Not die with honor. Not accept defeat. Try again. Eddie pitches the ball. Slowly, gently. Yamada swings. Misses. The other prisoners laugh, sharp, nervous laughter. Eddie tosses another. Yamada swings again. Contact. The ball rolls into the dirt. There you go. Eddie grins. Now run. Yamada hesitates, then sprints. His boots pound the dust. He reaches the white canvas square Eddie called first base and stops, panting. Eddie is laughing. Not mocking, joyful. See? You got on base. That's good. Yamada stands there, chest heaving, utterly confused. But something inside him, something he thought died at Pearl Harbor, flickers. Over the following weeks, Eddie teaches them the rules. How to field. How to throw. How to slide. The prisoners are terrible at first. They swing late. Throw wild. Run the wrong direction. But slowly, painfully slowly, they improve. And something else improves too. They begin to talk. Not about war. Not about defeat. About whether a curveball is fair. About who should bat fourth. About whether Tanaka's stance is too closed. They argue. They laugh. They play. One evening, Yamada approaches Eddie. "Corporal Nakamura," he says carefully, "I must ask, why do you do this?" Eddie looks out at the field. "Because my dad taught me baseball, and his dad taught him. And I figure, if I can teach you, maybe when you go home, you'll teach someone too." "But we are enemies." "Right now, yeah." Eddie nods. "But the war won't last forever." Yamada is silent for a long moment. "In Japan," he finally says, "we have a saying, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. We are taught to be the same, to obey, to sacrifice the self for the group." Eddie nods slowly. "Here we say, there's no I in team. But we also say, swing for the fences. I do not understand. You're part of a team. But when you step up to bat, it's just you. Your choices. Your swing." Eddie smiles. "Baseball's about both. The group and the individual. You need both to win." Yamada stares at the bat in his hands. For the first time since his capture, he understands. This is not military training. This is something far more dangerous. This is hope. The revelation spreads slowly, not as a single moment, but as a dawning. Yamada begins teaching the other prisoners what Eddie taught him. They organize teams. They set schedules. They argue over rules and positions with the same intensity they once applied to military protocol. And they begin to notice things they'd missed. The American soldiers don't just train, they compete. Different units challenge each other. Winners boast. Losers demand rematches. It's not about obedience. It's about pride. One prisoner, a former schoolteacher named Hiroshi, makes an observation. "In our military," he says quietly, "we are taught that individual glory is shameful. Only collective victory matters." "Yes," Yamada agrees. "But in baseball, the individual hero is celebrated. The man who hits the home run. The pitcher who strikes out the side. They are praised, but only because they helped the team win." Yamada nods slowly. "Both are honored. The one and the many. That," Hiroshi says, "is why they are winning the war." The insight cuts deeper than any propaganda briefing. Japan's military doctrine demanded absolute uniformity. Soldiers who questioned orders were punished. Creativity was dangerous. Innovation was insubordination. But America's doctrine, reflected in this strange ritual, balanced individual initiative with collective coordination. A batter could choose his pitch. A fielder could improvise. A base runner could take risks. But only if it served the team. Yamada begins writing again. Longer letters, more thoughtful. He writes about the game. About the way Americans teach their children to think independently while working together. About how competition breeds excellence, but cooperation determines victory. He writes about Eddie. And he writes about something else, something he's afraid to name. "I am beginning to understand why we lost. Not because of bombs or bullets, but because of this. Because America taught its people to dream individually and build collectively. Because they valued the question as much as the answer. Because they smiled while training for war. The camp administrators notice the change. Prisoners who once sat silent now shout encouragement. Men who refused to cooperate now organize games. Fights decrease. Morale improves. One officer asks Eddie, "What the hell did you do?" Eddie shrugs. "Taught them baseball. And that worked. Always does." By late 1944, the prisoners at Camp Florence have formed a league. 4 teams. Weekly games. Makeshift uniforms. They name themselves after Japanese prefectures: Hokkaido, Kyoto, Osaka, Tokyo. They keep statistics. They draft players. They hold championship games. And they invite the American soldiers to watch. The Americans come. They sit in the dust. They cheer for good plays, even when made by prisoners. After one particularly close game, an American soldier approaches Yamada. "That was a hell of a catch," he says. Yamada bows slightly. "Thank you. You guys are pretty good. Want to play us next week?" Yamada looks at his teammates. They nod. "Yes," he says. "We would be honored." The game is scheduled for a Saturday afternoon in October. Word spreads through the camp, through the barracks, through the guard towers. By game time, 300 people have gathered. American soldiers, administrative staff, off-duty guards, and on the other side of the diamond, 30 Japanese prisoners in mismatched uniforms. Eddie steps up to home plate. Yamada stands on the pitcher's mound. For a moment, they lock eyes. Enemy and friend, prisoner and guard, warrior and warrior. Then Yamada winds up. The ball leaves his hand. Eddie swings. Crack. The game is closer than anyone expected. The Americans score first, 2 runs in the opening inning. The prisoners answer with 1 in the third. By the 6th inning, the score is tied. The crowd is roaring, both sides, together. In the 8th inning, Hiroshi, the schoolteacher, steps up to bat. He's never played sports before the camp. Never held a bat before Eddie's lessons. The American pitcher throws a fastball. Hiroshi swings late. Misses. "That's all right." Yamada shouts from the dugout. "Wait for your pitch." The next pitch comes. Hiroshi watches it pass. Strike 2. The crowd murmurs. Hiroshi steps out of the box. Takes a breath. He remembers Eddie's words. "Your choices. Your swing." He steps back in. The pitch comes, a curveball, dropping. Hiroshi swings. Crack. The ball soars over the infield, over the outfield, over the fence. The prisoners explode from the dugout. They mob Hiroshi at home plate, laughing, shouting, disbelieving. And across the field, the American soldiers are applauding. The prisoners don't win the game. They lose, 7-5. But when it ends, both teams line up. They shake hands. "Good game. Good game. Hell of a homer. Thank you. You pitched well." That night, Yamada sits alone beneath the desert stars. He thinks about home, about honor, about everything he was taught. And he thinks about today, about Hiroshi's home run, about Eddie's smile, about the American soldiers applauding their enemy's triumph. He understands now. This is not military training. This is something his empire never taught him. This is the belief that competition makes you better, but doesn't make you enemies. That you can fight with honor and still respect your opponent. That victory and defeat are temporary, but the game continues. He closes his eyes. And for the first time since Pearl Harbor, he allows himself to imagine a future beyond war. If this story is giving you chills, smash that like button and share this video with someone who loves history. And I'm curious, have you ever had a moment where something you thought you understood completely turned out to be something entirely different? Let me know in the comments. August 15th, 1945. Emperor Hirohito announces Japan's surrender. In camps across America, Japanese prisoners gather around radios. Some weep. Some sit in stunned silence. A few, very few, feel something unexpected. Relief. Over the following months, the prisoners begin returning home. They board ships in California. They sail west across the Pacific. They carry few possessions, but many carry something invisible. Lieutenant Yamada returns to a Japan he doesn't recognize. Cities flattened, industry destroyed, millions dead. And yet, life continues. Children play in rubble. Merchants rebuild. Farmers plant rice. Yamada settles in Tokyo. He becomes a teacher, English language, mostly, to help with the occupation. He marries, has children, and one day in 1950, he takes his son to an empty lot near their home. He's carrying something wrapped in cloth. He unwraps it. A baseball bat. A leather ball. Gifts from Eddie Nakamura, given the day Yamada left Camp Florence. "What is this, father?" his son asks. Yamada smiles. "Let me show you." Baseball spreads through Japan like wildfire. American soldiers stationed during the occupation teach it. Former prisoners teach it. Children teach each other. By 1960, Japan has professional leagues. By 1970, Japanese baseball rivals America's in skill and passion. By 2009, Japan wins the World Baseball Classic. Twice. In 1995, Lieutenant Takeshi Yamada, now 78 years old, receives a letter. It's from California. From Eddie Nakamura. They've been corresponding for decades. Christmas cards, mostly. Updates about children and grandchildren. But this letter is different. "Takeshi, I'm coming to Tokyo next month for a baseball tournament. My grandson is playing. Would you like to come? I'd love for you to meet him. Your old friend, Eddie." They meet at Tokyo Dome. Two old men, one Japanese, one Japanese-American. Once enemies, now friends. They watch the game together. American team versus Japanese team. The crowd is enormous. Passionate. Roaring. In the 7th inning, Eddie's grandson hits a double. In the 9th, a Japanese player hits a home run to win the game. Both men applaud. Afterward, over tea, Eddie asks, "Do you remember that first day? When you thought baseball was military training?" Yamada laughs, a sound like wind through old trees. "I was a fool." "No," Eddie says. "You were a soldier. Soldiers see the world through war. And now," Eddie smiles, "now we see it through baseball." Yamada nods. "Eddie," he says quietly, "thank you." "For what?" "For teaching me that enemies can become friends. That war ends, but games continue. That there is life after defeat." Eddie's eyes shine. "You taught me something too," he says. "What?" "That people are more than their uniforms. That even in the darkest times, humans can learn, can change, can choose hope." They sit in comfortable silence. Two old warriors, watching children play. Lieutenant Takeshi Yamada passed away in 2003 at the age of 86. His obituary mentioned his naval service, his teaching career, his family. But to those who knew him, he was remembered for something else. Every Saturday, for 50 years, he could be found at a small field in Tokyo, teaching children baseball. He never spoke about the war unless asked. But he spoke constantly about the game, about teamwork, about resilience, about learning from failure, about the day an enemy taught him to swing a bat. Eddie Nakamura lived to 91. He attended every one of his grandson's games. He coached Little League until his knees gave out. And he kept every letter Takeshi ever sent him, dozens of them, spanning 6 decades. In his final letter, written just weeks before his death, Takeshi wrote, "My friend, I often think about that dusty field in Arizona, about how terrified we were, how certain we were that we understood what we were seeing. We were wrong about so many things, but I was right about one thing. Baseball is training, not for war, for peace. It teaches us to compete without hatred, to lose without shame, to win without arrogance. It teaches us that the game is bigger than any single player, that today's enemy can be tomorrow's teammate, that there is always another inning. Thank you for teaching me. And thank you for proving that even in the darkest chapter of our lives, humans can choose compassion over cruelty. Your eternal friend, Takeshi. Today, baseball is Japan's most popular sport. Over 10 million Japanese play regularly. The professional leagues draw millions of fans annually. And every year, American and Japanese teams compete, not as enemies, but as rivals bound by mutual respect. There's a small plaque at the former site of Camp Florence in Arizona. Most people drive past without noticing. But if you stop, if you read, you'll find this inscription. On this ground, prisoners of war learned that yesterday's enemies can become today's friends. Through the simple act of playing a game, they discovered that humanity transcends conflict, that competition can breed respect, and that even in the aftermath of terrible war, hope endures. The story of Lieutenant Yamada and Corporal Nakamura reminds us of something essential. The most powerful weapon is not the bomb or the bullet. It's the bridge. The willingness to see your enemy as human. To teach when you could punish. To offer a bat instead of a fist. Because war creates enemies. But peace requires friends. And sometimes, just sometimes, those friends begin as prisoners staring through a fence, watching something they don't understand, trying desperately to make sense of a world that has become unrecognizable. And sometimes, all it takes is someone willing to say, "It's just baseball. Want to try?" The wire fence cuts the sky into diamonds. But this time, there are no prisoners behind it. Just a field. Just a game. Just hope. The game continues. If this story moved you, please subscribe to this channel. We tell these forgotten stories of humanity every week, and I promise you won't regret it. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. And one more thing. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. Sometimes we all need a reminder that enemies can become friends, and that hope survives even the darkest moments of history. Drop a comment below telling me, what did this story teach you? I read every single comment, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.